सब लोग अपना म्यूट कर लो, ठीक है। एंड मैं आज ये रिकॉर्ड हो रहा है ये मीटिंग, ठीक है। सो लेट्स स्टार्ट विथ आवर टुडेस टॉपिक. So this is for detection and diagnosis of plant diseases. So you have got some of the basic information about the detection and diagnosis. Okay, so today we'll discuss about an important technique, that is zero diagnostics. So before going to that, let's understand the basic difference between detection and diagnosis. So we have discussed this detection as well as diagnosis, the difference between these two terms in the virology course as well. So just to revise the thing, detection is just identification of the causal agent for any disease. It is just saying the particular symptom is caused by particular pathogen, whereas diagnosis is a much uh, deeper terminology, much more emphasis has been given here for establishing the causal nature of the disease. Say for example, detection may indicate a particular virus is involved in the disease, whereas diagnosis identifies the virus and its kind of uh, vectors involved, and the kind what are the aspects of this disease is being identified in the diagnosis. Diagnosis is a much broader terminology compared to the detection. So further, if you want to discuss what are the needs for detection of any disease or pathogen, so this is because detection is the first and basic foremost step for managing any kind of diseases. So unless we find the exact cause of the disease, we would not be able to come with the proper management strategies. That's why detection is very important. That too, accurate detection is more important. Say for example, if a disease wilt is caused by a fungal pathogen, but if it is misdiagnosed as a bacterial disease, then the entire management strategy will have to be changed. So that's why detection and accurate detection is important. And then the timing of the detection, how quickly we can detect the disease. So when there is an epidemic, so detection of the pathogen at the early stages before the symptom appearance may help in reduce the quantum of the epidemic. So if the detection tools are more accurate as well as less time consuming, then they are more useful for managing the diseases. So that's why both timing as well as of the diagnostic method is very important. Okay. So having said this, so there are several methods of identification or detection of pathogens. Say for example, we have so many different pathogens like fungi, bacteria, viruses, viroids, nematode, phytoplasma, okay, phanerogamic parasites, etc. All these organisms cause diseases, various kinds of diseases in different plants. So the detection of these plants require different kinds of expertise. So the detection may range from starting from identification of symptomatology to the identification of nucleotides, that is nucleic acid based method. So conventionally, uh, the techniques may include symptomatology based on the laboratory test of the pathogen, that is growing the pathogen in the laboratory, which may be suitable for some of the fungal pathogens or bacterial pathogens because they can be grown on culture media. But what happens when the pathogen is obligatory in nature, that is the pathogen cannot be uh, cultured in the laboratory, so then we require a different set of detection tools. Okay, so the tools may vary according to the disease as well as the situation. So basically, before this is a kind of classification of detection methods according to Lavakumar. So before the 1976, there were tests such as bioassay as well as detection using inclusion bodies using microscopy. This detection method is more specifically relevant to the viral diseases. So here, before 1976, the viral diseases were detected using bioassay, that is indicator plants. Say for example, there are few indicator plants. Based on the reaction of the virus and particular indicator plant, the virus can be detected. Okay, or maybe using some of the specific inclusion body, identification of the inclusion bodies. Say for example, potyviruses induce pinwheel shaped inclusion bodies in the host. So whenever there is a presence of pinwheel shaped inclusion bodies, we can say that this is caused by the potyvirus. So these are the techniques or specific techniques used for viruses before 1976. But once the advances in the serological techniques, that is immunology, so there was a rapid improvement in the detection techniques. So the antigen antibody reaction was able to manipulated for the detection of the viruses as well as other pathogens. So this antigen antibody reaction has given new possibility in the field of diagnosis. So it made the diagnosis more high throughput. That means number of samples can be increased or more number of samples can be assessed in a very short period of time, and the accuracy can be more as compared to the conventional techniques. Say for example, there is a mosaic symptom on particular plant. The mosaic symptom can be caused by various viruses. Maybe yellow mosaic virus of bigomovirus group, maybe cucumber mosaic virus, maybe some other potyvirus. So you all know that similar kind of symptoms are induced by different kind of viruses. The problem comes here is when we are breeding for a particular disease. So unless we know that particular symptom is caused by a particular virus, we will not be able to breed a specific resistant variety to a specific virus. So that's why accurate detection is much more important when it comes to the breeding. So these are some of the techniques which can be employed in a very large scale in order to screen out number of samples to understand exact cause of the disease. Okay, so I have listed some of the serological techniques which are used in various contexts, but more often we are into much more advanced techniques like ELISA. There are say different kinds of ELISA. ELISA is enzyme linked immunosorbent assay, which is a modified technique or solid based immunological technique where on a solid surface we visualize the antigen antibody reaction. Okay, so before going to the antigen antibody and ELISA techniques, let's understand what is the basic principles of serology. See, serology basically deals with the detection of reaction between an antigen and an antibody. Okay, so you all know the antibodies are produced in mammalian body against invasion of any foreign bodies. In order to curtail the foreign bodies, the antibodies are produced in the uh, uh, mammalian system. Okay, so the antibody is a molecule produced in mammalian body. What is antigen? Antigen is any molecule which induce the production of specific antibody in the mammalian body is antigen. Okay, so this is antigen and antibody. So when we talk about antigen, so there are different regions in the antigen such as epitope, paratope, cryptotope. These are the three important regions present on the antigen. Okay, antigen is a molecule which induces the production of antibodies. So this antigen contains three important regions. One is epitope, cryptotope and paratope. So epitope we also call as major antigenic determinant. This is the a kind of shape of the antigen, that is surface structure of the antigen, which actually determines the shape of the antibody. Okay, this epitope is also called as major antigenic determinant, whereas another part of the antigen is called paratope. Paratopes are called as minor antigenic determinants. They are kind of less prominent than the epitopes. That is paratope. Then there is a region called cryptotope. Cryptotopes are, these are the surface of the antigen like this. This is epitope. There is a hidden structure in which is embedded inside the epitope, which is called as cryptotope. Cryptotopes generally does not induce, does not determine the structure of the antibody. Okay, so epitope and the paratope, one is major antigenic determinant, another one is minor antigenic determinant. So based on this, there are different kinds of antibodies. Say for example, uh, monoclonal antibodies. Monoclonal antibodies are the antibodies produced against particular epitope. Say for example, there is an antigen which has a V-shaped structure. So there is an antibody which only determines this kind of structure, is called monoclonal antibody. Monoclonal antibodies are produced against a single epitope, whereas polyclonal antibodies are general antibodies which are produced, which are not only against particular epitope. So there are other paratopes, other structures. So this is kind of general antibody, which is polyclonal antibodies. More number of uh, epitopes are determined by the polyclonal antibodies, whereas monoclonal antibodies can only bind against a particular epitope. Okay, so these are two types of antibodies: monoclonal antibody and polyclonal antibody. So these are the some of the limits of various detection methods that you can just note down later. So coming to the serology, so I have already told there is an antigen, there is an antibody. In the antigen, there are regions called epitope, paratope, cryptotope. And based on the determinant of this antibody, there are two types of antibodies: monoclonal antibody and polyclonal antibody. This monoclonal antibodies are able to bind against particular epitope. Okay, whereas polyclonal antibodies are non-specific. They are much more flexible in their action. Okay, see, and there are several types of immunoglobulins. That is antibody. We call it as immunoglobulins like IgG, IgA, IgE. Okay, so IgG is one of the most prominent immunoglobulin. Okay, so this is here you can see a structure of immunoglobulin, which is a complex structure, a Y-shaped structure, where there are two important parts to it. One is there is heavy chain and light chain. The inner chain, which you can see, is heavy chain, and the outer smaller chain, smaller portion is called light chain. Okay, the antibody has two ends to it. One is at the one end there is a ammonia NH3 molecule, and on the other side there is a carboxyl group. Okay, so this, the heavy chain as well as light chain are linked together with disulfide bond. You can see the disulfide bond here. Okay, disulfide bond. So this antibody has different sides to it. The important portions are heavy chain as well as light chain. The both the chains are linked by disulfide bond. So So how exactly this serological technique works? So there is an antibody and there is an antigen. Okay, so we all know the antibodies are produced against particular antigen, and they can only identify that particular antigen. They can only react to that particular antigen. Say for example, there is a protein molecule, say for example coat protein of TMV. Once coat protein of TMV is injected into the mammalian body, this coat protein of TMV will produce a particular antibody, and that antibody will only react with the coat protein of TMV. That is the specificity we have here. So that is the advantage of serological method. So once we have a specific antibody to a specific antigen, once we characterize that this antibody, say for example antibody A, can only react with the TMV coat protein. So now we have this antibody A is produced in large quantity, and now we can say we can identify the samples where TMV is either present or not. Okay, that's how the serological method works. So based on this antigen antibody reaction, there are number of serological methods which have been evolved over a period of time, like gel double diffusion, so which we have discussed in virology course as well as in other courses. Based on the kind of visualization, how we visualize the reaction, say there is a antibody and antigen, there is a reaction, but we need to visualize how we understand there is a reaction or not. So based on the visualization, there are different techniques. Say for example uh, gel double diffusion method. That means we are inducing antigen as well as antibody on a gel medium, where the antigen and antibody comes and coagulates each other, and there is a reaction in the gel. So that is visualized. Okay, like that there are tests called latex test. Latex test also the test in which we immobilize the antibody on a latex membrane and then add the antigen onto the latex membrane. Once there is a reaction, we see the agglutination. Okay, that is latex test. So based on this kind of reaction, we have different methods. Okay, in these methods, one of the important method is ELISA, enzyme linked immunosorbent assay. Here the reaction is determined by the reaction between the enzyme as well as substrate. The enzyme is linked to a particular antibody. Once this antibody attaches to the particular antigen, which has a particular substrate in it. So based on the reaction between the linked enzyme and the substrate, we can visualize the reaction. So I'll come to that in a bit later. That is ELISA. So like that, there are techniques like immunoelectron microscopy, where first the antibodies are coated on a membrane, then the antigens are added. Antigen means mostly viruses. These once there is a specific reaction between antigen and the virus antigen and the antibody, so the viruses are captured on the membrane. So once the viruses are captured on the membrane, which can be visualized. If the virus is not specific, it won't be captured on the membrane. So that's how the specific viruses are determined. So this is the serology, enzyme linked immunosorbent assay, ELISA. So this ELISA method is one of the serological method. The principal reaction was first reported by Avrames in 1969, and the term ELISA was introduced by Wohler et al. Wohler and his co-workers in 1976. This ELISA is a solid phase assay. That means the reaction is performed on a solid plate. Okay, each reactant is immobilized on a plastic surface. Okay, that is ELISA plates. We have ELISA plates, polyvinyl ELISA plates, on which each reactant. What are the reactants here? Reactants are the antigens and antibodies. So the antigen and antibodies are immobilized on the plastic surface, and the reaction is determined by the substrate. Okay, so once there is a reaction between substrate and the enzyme linked with the antibody, if there is a reaction, there will be a some color change. So that color change is identified, and this color change can also be quantified, which is called colorimetry, okay, through spectrophotometer. So that is ELISA. So there are different kinds of ELISA. So I'll just deal with the important two important methods. One is direct ELISA. The name itself indicates the direct ELISA, where the immunoglobulins IgG or polyclonal antiserum are coated on a solid surface. So here the first we coat the antibodies. Antibodies are coated on the solid surface. Then we add the antigen. So once the solid surface is coated with the IgG, whenever we add a specific antigen which is corresponding to the IgG, then these antibodies will trap the antigen. Okay. Sorry. Then in the third step, we add same antibody, that is same IgG, just like for step 1. So in the third step, the antibodies are linked with the enzyme. So what we have done in the first step, we have added antibody to capture the antigens onto its surface. In the third step, we added an antibody which has linked to the enzyme. So now the antigen is embedded between two antibodies. Okay. So on the fourth step, we add a substrate which will lead to color change. So let's understand this in the following step. So here you see in the first step we add polyclonal antibody. After the polyclonal antibody is immobilized on a particular surface, so this is the, say for example, this is the antibody which is stick to the surface. So in the next step we add antigen. Say for example the antigen is reacted with the antibody and the antibody has captured the antigen. So once this is captured, in the third step we add another set of antibodies which are linked to an enzyme. Enzyme has already been linked to this antibody. So this antigen has become sandwiched in between two antibodies. Okay, so this antigen antibody complex which has an enzyme to it now has the ability to detect once the substrate is added. So now we know this particular enzyme, the kind of enzyme which we have added to the antibody. Now what we do, we'll add a substrate to it. So when there is a specific substrate which is linked to the enzyme, there will be a reaction between the enzyme and the substrate. So once there is a reaction between the enzyme and the substrate, there will be a change in the color. Okay. Say for example, the color here is yellow. So once there is a presence of antigen, that means there will be a color change. If more number of antigens are present in the sample, there will be more number of antibodies corresponding to it. When there is a more number of antibody corresponding to it, there is a more number of enzyme present in the solid surface. So when there is more number of enzyme, more amount of enzyme present, there is a more stronger color development. That's how it can be quantified. That means the virus titer can be quantified. The amount of pathogen material virus present in a sample can also be quantified based on the intensity of the color. So this is double antibody, double antigen sandwich ELISA. Okay, this is DAS ELISA. So that is a direct ELISA, where the detection, the antigen is detected directly by the primary antibody. Okay, this is a primary antibody produced against this particular antigen only. That's why it's called as direct ELISA. Okay, so DAS ELISA is direct ELISA. Double antibody sandwich ELISA. So coming to these are some of the example. So we'll deal with that later. So let's understand indirect ELISA, that is direct antigen coating ELISA. So don't confuse here. Here DAC ELISA is an indirect ELISA. Although DAC ELISA means direct antigen coating ELISA, but it is a method of indirect determination. Okay. So let's understand why it is indirect. So there is a viral antigen. First, the viral antigens are coated on a solid surface. Then we add a specific antibody linked to that particular antigen. So if at all they are linked together, the antibody will stick on to the antigen. Once this antibody is sticked onto this antigen, or there is a complex of antigen antibody, the next step here, we add a secondary antibody which is produced against the primary antibody. You understand that this is the antigen, the second antibody is produced against this antigen. Okay, that is called primary antibody. Okay, this is primary antibody produced in a particular mammal. Say for example, guinea pig or rat. This antibody was produced in rat, and this rat antibody was again injected into a rabbit. Okay, so the rabbit will produce an antibody against an antibody of rat, that is secondary antibody. So the method here is we detect the virus through a secondary antibody. That's why it's called indirect ELISA. So in the first step, we have added antigen. Antigens are immobilized on the solid surface, and then we add IgG corresponding to the antigen, and the next step we add a secondary antibody which is corresponding to the primary antibody. So once there is a presence of primary antibody, so the secondary antibody will go and stick onto the primary antibody, and the reaction is visualized just like any other ELISA. So the difference between the direct ELISA and indirect ELISA is, in case of direct ELISA, the antibody which is detecting the virus is primary antibody. That is, it is produced against the virus itself. Whereas in case of indirect ELISA, the detection is by a universal enzyme, that is a secondary antibody. Okay, so that is the direct as well as indirect ELISA. So these are some of the examples. Okay, advantages of serological methods. So I have listed different advantages. There is a high sensitivity. It can be very rapid. You all know some of the kits of coronavirus, antibody based kits that are being discussed. They can detect the virus in very short period of time. Okay, it requires very less time. Then crude samples can directly be used. There is no need to process the sample. Say for example, we need to separate the other things and need to isolate the protein, not like that. So crude samples can directly be employed. If there is a presence of antigen, obviously there will be a color change. And another advantage is that it can differentiate the serotypes. So if, say for example, there is a variation within the coat protein of a virus, so there will be a specific antibody against that particular coat protein. So by this means we can differentiate between the variants which are present in the population, that those variants are called serotypes. That means the viruses or any organisms which are reacting to a particular antibody. Okay, that is serotypes. Then the another advantage is where it is very cost effective because large number of samples can be tested, and once we standardize the technique, so the antibodies can be produced in another method. So this is very cheap compared to other methods. And the uh, other advantage is it is independent of the virus morphology. So this is uh, kind of advantage over the conventional methods. Okay. So disadvantage is the the method cannot be used to conclusively say that particular strain, because in case of, especially in case of viruses, there are much more strain variation within at the genetic level, so it is not conclusive. Okay, so sometimes there is a possibility of giving false positive or false negative reactions. So, and there is this may not be true, but there is an involvement of animal cruelty with this method, because when we are raising the antibodies, we need to kill some of the mammals and obtain the antibodies. So there is an involvement of animal cruelty. So, but that's not valid disadvantage. But serological methods are disadvantage over other methods in case of its sensitivity as well as rapidity and cost effectiveness. So nucleic acid based methods we'll discuss in the next class. So just we'll discuss uh, we'll have a Q&A session to discuss the doubts. Okay. So I'll just close this PPT. Try to close. Okay. So any doubts?
Sir, which ELISA is more suitable for screening for large number of viruses? Is it DAC or DAS?
See, it depends. Say, for example, in case of DAC ELISA, we have the advantage of secondary antibodies. Say, for example, in case of DAS ELISA, we need antibodies, large amount of antibodies of a specific raised against a particular virus. Say, for example, if you want to detect a TASPO virus, so both in the both step 1 and step 3, we need same antibody. Okay, so that means there is a requirement of large amount of antibodies against a specific antigen. Okay, but in case of
Yeah.
laser, we have advantage of secondary antibody. Say for example, if we are raising the antibody primary antibodies in a rat, okay, so we can produce secondary antibodies of the rat in a large amount. Okay, so that's why ELISA is more cost effective compared to DAS ELISA.
DAS right.
Large amount of samples, because we have the advantage of secondary antibodies.
Yeah. Yes, sir. Thank you, sir.
आप लोग ये डाउनलोड कर लिया ना पीपीटी? डाउनलोड नहीं हुआ?
स्क्रीनशॉट ले लिया सर।
स्क्रीनशॉट ले लिया सर।
तो ये मटेरियल आपको भेज दूंगा व्हाट्सएप में, so you can just go through it and understand, and then if there are any doubts you can come over with the next class. लेकिन अभी भी कोई डाउट है तो आप पूछ सकते हैं. Any doubts? सब लोग वीडियो डिसेबल करके रखे हो क्या? हाँ,
Yes, sir.
तो आई नीड दिस, देर इज अ रिक्वायरमेंट फ्रॉम द यूनिवर्सिटी कि आप लोग क्लास में आ रहे हैं कि नहीं, आपका शक्ल दिखा दो.
Okay, sir.
Okay, so this is for the record. Okay, so any doubts?
No, sir.
So raise your hand if you have any doubts. No doubt. So I will discuss the nucleic acid based methods in the next class. Okay. So you just go through the serological methods. We have discussed this in the virology as well. There are different kinds of uh, serological methods like immunoblot, uh, double gel diffusion, gel double diffusion, etc. So you just go through that, and then if you have any doubts, then we'll discuss in the next class. Okay. So I have another class. PhD वाले राम निवास कहाँ है निधि का? So you ask him to join. Okay. So we'll discuss the this one, molecular host pathogen interaction. तो आप लोग रहना है तो आप आ सकते हैं 11 बजे. Okay. I have already sent the link. If you wish to join, then you can join. Otherwise, it will be class for the PhD students. Okay. Thank you.